Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 6 o'clock, and I'm sure we'll be having people join us throughout the evening, but we only have about an hour scheduled for this. So we're going to go ahead and get started. There's a couple of things I do want to mention is the raise hand feature. Even if it's there, it's not working. So we will not be taking any raised hands at this point. So I want to mention that as we move forward. First of all, I just want to say welcome. It's great to have you here. This is a great opportunity, and it's an opportunity to really give feedback and to see what has happened over the last couple of months. So thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend and to be a part of this process. I also want to recognize the Preserve and the Renew our Carnegie Task Force Library. They have been actively and strategically engaged in the community over the last year, looking at the ADA compliance, the expansion process for the Carnegie Library, and they have put countless hours on this. So I want to give them a lot of credit. We have somebody that's here that I need to move over, so bear with me. I don't know. Eric, it looks like I have you in here.
Yeah, that's Dennis.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, great, thank you. So anyway, I just want to recognize them. They have put hours and hours on this, and they deserve a great amount of credit. So take a moment and say thank you for that. Tonight is really an exciting night, and Eric from Ratio Architects will be facilitating tonight. He'll be talking about what has happened and how we got to where we are, and then what are the next steps. We also have Michael here from the Pikes Peak Library District, but Eric will be doing the facilitation. It is a very about an hour to an hour and a half meeting, hour and 15 minutes. So I don't want to take up much time. I want to turn it over to Eric. But again, I want to thank you for joining and for participating. It's really important in our community. So thank you for that. And with Eric, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Denise. Now, hi, everybody. I'm Eric Rebel-Unis. Hopefully many of you remember me from the last kind of community presentation where we walked through 3 different design options, and we did that Keep, Toss, Create exercise. And I just want you to know that we're going to be going through how all of your feedback has really influenced and shaped where this project is headed. And just know that when we go through this design option that really tries to react to all the community comments, that we're going to be going through another Keep, Toss, Create with all of you, just to make sure that the communication lines stay open and that our collaboration can continue here. And then also with me on the call is Dennis Humphreys, who is our library principal at Ratio. So just to kind of give you an idea of where we are in the process right now, today is that community meeting on the 9th. On October 4th, we're going to be meeting with Parab to get their comments on the site aspects of this. On the 6th of October, we're going to be meeting with the HPC, again, to get the comments from the historic standpoint. And then on November 2nd is we're going to be going back to City Council for the second time, where we're going to be presenting to them, again, the community, Parab, and HPC feedback that we've gotten to date, and really showing them how this transparent process is delivering a project that's really reflective of the community and the direction that it wants to go. And I guess just to point out real quick where we've all been together so far. In June, we had our first community meeting, again, with that Keep, Toss, Create exercise where we had 3 design options. We took that community feedback and refined the options for our historic preservation meeting, where we got really great feedback from them on aspects that they liked about where the project was going and aspects that they didn't like about where the project was going. And again, really took that critical feedback and shaped the project further. And then when we met with Parab, we discussed, the importance of preserving park space, parking needs, and really just making sure that the site is what they're envisioning it will be. And then the City Council meeting where we presented all the findings to date, which has really led us to kind of going through this additional collaboration with everybody, again, to make sure that the final design option that we come up with together really is what the community wants it to be. And so, we heard a lot of really positive things the first time around about all three of the different design options. And the option you're going to see is it's going to try to cherish and capture those. So hopefully the things that you liked about the previous options have all been kind of combined together in a manner that is successful. But we also want to make sure that that we heard your concerns from those initial sessions together. And some of the really common or the big common threads we found through that collaboration was really the importance of keeping the Carnegie as the primary structure on the site. It's a really special building, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Through the community and from Parab, just really understanding how special this park space is and how it sits within kind of the middle of the community. And going back to keeping the Carnegie as the primary structure, making sure that the visual impact of the addition is minimized as much as we can. Again, really making sure we celebrate the Carnegie. And then there's also a discussion about exploring moving the addition towards the south of the existing building. Again, I think the goal of that was to try to push the structure or the addition as far away as we could from kind of the visibility from Manitou Avenue. Pulling back the addition from the north facade, again, trying to minimize the impact that the addition is going to have from a visibility standpoint, and making sure that the materiality and architectural style is going to respect and complement the historic Carnegie. Before we had two pretty different options. One was very traditional and another was more contemporary. And what we've heard from the community is that we really want something that respects and complements the Carnegie. And then finally there was a good discussion about how big does the addition really need to be, and can it actually be reduced in size? And so a little more information about the programming needs of this library from PPLD's standpoint is, first and foremost, we need to make sure that this project is creating an accessible facility for everybody. That's making sure that people can use every single amenity within the library on the upper floor and the lower floor. In addition to that, that elevator is really going to help facilitate library needs from moving books up and down. Another really critical element of the 21st century library is just making sure that we have flexible library space, for our current needs, but also for wherever the library's needs go in the future, whether it's 20, 30, or 50 years down the road. And it's kind of really important to think that we want to make sure that we're able to kind of create those, those experiences for the community, like kids growing up together, going to story time, and having that experience and providing that experience creates that opportunity to create those lifelong friendships, or even just a neutral territory, a nonpartisan place where we can discuss topics of any kind. There's going to be an extended computer lab in this space, a dedicated teenager area. There's going to be a library program and community room where classes, training, different library programs, and it's really just a flexible space that could be used for so many different activities. Individual study rooms are being provided. Another really important item is that there'll be a library staff area that currently doesn't exist in the existing structure. And then, I guess just to kind of talk about the concern previously noted about the project size, the current building is 2,791 square feet. And the previous edition that people have seen, I think, was around that 35 or 3,600 area. What you're going to see today has been reduced down to 2,950 square feet, with the project totaling, just over 5,700 square feet. And I think what's important to note about that is that this addition is going to really be bringing this library in line with the other smallest library in the PPLD branch. And we mentioned before just how precious and important this Carnegie Library is to the community. And we just really want to reiterate that, we hear you and we agree. And we've heard that from HPC, and everything that we're trying to accomplish in this design moving forward is really trying to honor that existing structure and provide enhanced programming for the library and the community for its users. And so just a little recap, just to reorient everyone. I'm sure you're all very familiar with where the library currently exists, but I just want to point out, Manitou Avenue and how it kind of meanders through the downtown zone and takes these fairly intentional curves. And what's really important to note about these curves of Manitou Avenue is just how purposeful this library park is oriented on one of the more severe bends. And when we talk about what's the important view that we all have kind of in our memories of the library, and it's really that view coming from Manitou Avenue, because that's often where your vehicle is slowing down as you're taking that turn, and it's kind of giving you that opportunity to take in a little bit more of your surroundings. So this little feature is really kind of creating a really important moment of how the community is experiencing the site and the existing library as they're passing by. And the library is kind of set back, which really preserves the park space and how it interacts with Manitou Avenue. And when you look at the surrounding zone, as I'm sure you're all very familiar with, it's surrounded by buildings. So this site really is a bit of an oasis on its own, and it is something that it really conveys the importance of preserving as much park space as we can. And so what we want to do is jump into really going through how all of your feedback and comments have pushed the design to where it is currently. And hopefully you can see how valuable your input is. And then we'll go through another keep, cross, create exercise with you all to kind of keep that feedback and that feedback-driven design going. But so on the bottom of this image is Manitou Avenue. Here's that large open park space directly adjacent to it. You can kind of get a better sense of some of the adjacent houses on the east and the west of the building. And then on the south is where you have the elementary school. And so, something to note is just how excited the elementary school seems to be about the possibility of bringing their classes over. And so kind of on the concern of, what about putting an addition to the south of the existing Carnegie? Well, given that we don't need the drive-through lane, that really opened up the opportunity to move the two-story volume to that south elevation and to have the main entry located there more purposefully and easy to observe, in the same manner that it's closer to the elementary school, to make sure that it's easier for them to get to the structure and access it. And so just really quickly, I just kind of want to give you an overview of how the plan of this building is generally laid out, so you can understand how it's intended to function. And then we'll get into kind of going through the exterior of the building and seeing how the new addition is going to relate to the existing Carnegie. And so on the off of Pawnee Avenue would be the main entry walk, where users will show up to where the addition has been, the two-story addition has been placed on the south side of the existing library. And so it was moved to the south side to make sure that any of that two-story volume wasn't going to be visible from Manitou Avenue and is going to be tucked away from view. And so in that addition, this is 450 square feet roughly, and this is the only zone of the park that is being replaced by building and not giving back outdoor amenities. And so within this two-story space, we have the elevator and the stair that's intended to, first of all, make sure the main entry is accessible. And so that users can enter the library from the main level and then have access to where we're kind of repurposing the upper level of the existing Carnegie as this community room. We have the opportunity of really honoring the interior of this space and letting it be something that the community can continue to utilize and enjoy. And there's some built-in casework around the exterior of the space, so there's still the opportunity to maybe do a curated exhibit, or maybe it's utilized as a gallery at certain points, but really trying to give that existing Carnegie to the community for during library hours use, but even the potential of locking off the library and having it for after hour functions. And then this kind of circulation, or this stair and elevator zone, also provides access to the roof of the lower level, to where, and we'll show you a little bit better through the visualizations of it, but just how this roof, even though there's a building there, is really an extension of the park. And we want to make sure that outdoor programming activities can really spill out from the park space onto this rooftop. And when you go down to the lower level, you come out the stairs of the elevator, where we're providing accessible restrooms for everybody. But you'll just notice that for the most part, this collection area is just a very open, flexible space, and that kind of goes back to making sure that we're providing the library with a space that meets their needs now, but also a space that's going to be flexible and adaptable enough in the future to accommodate things that we don't quite know are going to be needed yet. And here are the three study rooms that we mentioned previously. Again, just with such an open library space, you do want to be able to provide some opportunity for quiet and focus. And then the new admin zone for the library, where they could actually have their back of house needs tucked away and be a little more efficient in their day-to-day activities. And then I think lastly to note about the plan is the children's library will be able to continue to kind of leverage the lower level of the existing Carnegie where they currently are. And we could just open that space up more to account for that, that 20 to 25 student classroom space. And what's really great about being able to utilize that lower level zone is that we can kind of acoustically separate them from the rest of the library and make sure that everyone's kind of getting the most out of their library experience. And so kind of going back to a lot of the comments about the previous options, all three options really was, the community wanting to make sure that the existing Carnegie is really the focus of the site and always will be. And so what the addition has done is first of all, it's moved that two-story volume to the backside of this. So there isn't any view of this project that's going to be taking away kind of that view to the sky through that two-story volume like the existing Carnegie does. And so the part of the library that has been extended out and is visible from the road is still that one-story dug into the earth idea where you have that rooftop opportunity. And again, all this is done to really emphasize and not take away from the existing structure on the site. And the same goes true when the addition kind of takes on that main view as you're walking past. We've pulled this elevation far back just to make sure that really the massing of that existing library is proud, and the addition is subservient to that structure. And here's a view of the main entry zone as one would be approaching the library. We really heard, from the group that the architecture needs to be complementary to the existing Carnegie. It doesn't want to be this stark contrast. It's not intended to match exactly, and it's more refined detailing, which we haven't necessarily got to at this point, but we're just making sure that roof lines are more intentional and flow together a little more seamlessly than what you all saw before. And so on the left of the image here, this is really that two-story space, but it's dug into the earth. So from a massing standpoint, it really only comes across as a one-story volume. And a really important element of this main entry is that it's accessible. Someone can come to this site, park in the provided accessible parking space, and really have full access to both the upper and the lower level of this library, as well as you'll see some of the outdoor amenity space. And so, here's a more of an aerial perspective of the addition, where again, you can see the existing Carnegie. Here's that two-story volume, which is intended to appear smaller in nature, not really have that two-story presence on the site. This is that pulled back north elevation of the addition that's dug into the earth. And then here you can kind of see how the park space is intended to flow out onto that addition, really activate the rooftop from an accessible standpoint. And here's a view from the north part of the site, kind of adjacent to the elementary school. Again, they're showing as you're passing by that the addition is not intended to feel as this element that stands out on the site. It's really intended to blend in with the natural context, really let the existing structure stand proud on the site. And the moments where you do have the new addition visible, making sure that it really is of a similar nature to the existing Carnegie. And again, just to reiterate, this rooftop space is accessible. So anyone with any type of mobility or vision disability will be able to circulate through the building or take a sidewalk approach around this property and be able to take part in park activities, whether it's some music on here or where it's usually done further down. They could at least observe that from an accessible space now. So that's a brief explanation of how we've reacted to the community's comments thus far, and HPC's comments and PARIB's comments. And we want to go through this process again to talk about, have the concerns been addressed? Well, maybe there's going to be some new concerns that we can keep refining this and improving it. I want to make sure that we kept everything that we liked about the previous three options, that we properly merged them or synthesized them together to this path forward. So with that being said, we're going to do that keep, cross, create exercise now. And what I'm going to ask you all to do is either join by text, and you're just going to send a text message to Ratio and just include this number, or you can go to polev.com and just enter Ratio to join if you're on your computer, for example. And these directions will show up on the following slides as well. So there's not you don't get it right now, there'll be a chance. So with that being said, we're going to do a little test here just to make sure you're connecting and it's working. So I'll just ask everyone, what's your favorite food? Go ahead and text it in, and we'll see how many people are connected right now. I think pizza is what's on the menu for me tonight. No favorite foods. You just love everything. I could agree with that. anything your husband makes. That's nice. I'm sure he appreciates that. He's probably sitting next to you, isn't he? So we'll just kind of let this go for another 30 seconds or so. There's multiple people liking pizza. I just saw chocolate pop up. I'm guessing that's any kind of chocolate in solid or frozen form.
Pizza's clearly still winning.
Yeah, pizza's winning by a long shot. See ratio. I can only assume that you mean the brewery and that the beer is your favorite food. Okay, well, I think it's great. It's great to see everyone is connected here. So I think with that being said, I'm going to activate the next exercise here. And so, first and foremost, through kind of what we went through before and my kind of explanation, and similar to the past exercise, what about the current design that you saw today do you want to keep? What did we hear successfully? What opportunities is this library going to provide the community that they're excited about? I'll just walk around a little bit here. Here's that view from Manitou Avenue. I'm walking up Pawnee Avenue right now. You can see how quickly that library addition kind of really fades away on the site and has a much less impact than previous options. We got someone that they love all of it. It's great to hear. It's preservation of the park. Oops, sorry, I think I flipped the slide a little bit. Going back to keep them. The acre space is a great amenity. Putting on the south side, keeping the addition in the ground, even lower would be okay. We'll keep it as low as we possibly can. Here's kind of that view or the entry sequence that you get as you're experiencing the new addition. More love for the south side. Yeah, we think that was a really great comment from everybody. I think it really helped move kind of that visual impact of the addition to a west view side. Great idea of putting it behind. The credit goes to all the collaboration. Here's kind of where someone could either walk through the building to get outside, or they can walk down the sidewalk and access this exterior space. But this is the rooftop of that lower level, and you can see how valuable a flat space on the site could be for gathering and letting the greenery spill onto the roof. And again, you can see how dug in to the earth that this addition really becomes. Switch back to some of the responses and see if I can pull up more. So I appreciate you understanding that where the library is on Manitou Avenue makes it more prominent. Yeah, definitely. Dennis and I were talking just about how important the curvature of Manitou Avenue is and how intentional that view was created for people passing by to really make sure that this became and remained a really important part of the community. Love that we saved the park. Absolutely. we'll keep this comment for the toss. And we'll talk more about that one. What will be the material on the outside of the addition to work with the existing structure? You know, it could be a very similar brick, perhaps just with a little different take on the brick detailing. You know, a material that really complements the existing structure, but still is of a modern time. Keeping the Carnegie as the centerpiece, yeah, we heard that loud and clear. We really wanted to emphasize that. Oops. That's my fault again. It's a sensitive mouse wheel. There it goes again. Okay, well, I think that's some really good feedback on the keep. It seems like we heard a lot about things that were working well from the previous comments, and that we did hear what you liked about the different options and tried to save the best elements. So I think what we want to focus on now is, you know, what about this would you toss? You know, what would you want to get rid of? I appreciate the nothing. So maybe that some people don't feel the rooftop is the best idea. And, you know, I think what's interesting about the rooftop is the goal of the rooftop really is to take advantage of something that you're spending money on to build anyway. So the one-story dug-in addition is reacting to the need to minimize the visual impact from Manitou Avenue. I'll pull up the street view here again. And so while there's nothing, you know, unfeasible or infeasible about having a two-story here, is just we really heard from the previous comments from all the groups really, is that when we had that two-story structure here, it felt a little too monolithic, a little too imposing.
Mention something about the rooftop, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely.
That I appreciate, and the whole design actually. From what I know about Manitou and my experiences, relationships are vitally important. They're important in all communities, and libraries really value that, and that's something that we prioritize and consider. The 21st century library is about building community connections and relationships. And I like the rooftop because of that. That possibility of having programs, having meeting space, as well as the meeting room and the flexible design inside. All of that speaks to what I think is really important in terms of libraries today and in the future. But specifically, having a place where classes can come after school, have programs, meet, and other community members, community groups can also meet and take advantage of those spaces too.
Thanks, Michael. I'm going to pause this here for a second and jump back to the comments. You know, in terms of whether or not it should be taller, you know, I think that's definitely a detailed question that we're really excited to dig into once we get out of this concept phase. Still people supporting rooftop and generally being happy with where we've gone. Good redesign. Are those planters in front of the lower level facing Manitou Avenue? I think, well, I think they are, if I'm thinking of the same ones. I just keep going, don't toss anything. Increase the parking. Yeah, we'll bring up the parking comment with Parab when we meet with them. You we're providing that one space now to make sure we meet the accessibility need of someone who's driving there. But from previous conversation with Parab, it's every parking spot we add, it's park space that we're taking away. So it's trying to find that balance of where they want the project to go. Let's see, can we shrink the previous Thorpe design? So that's what we've done thus far. And the conversation will continue with the library about, how, as we get into the refinement of this design, how can we optimize the footprint of the building? Pleasantly surprised by this design. Well, that's great. Hopefully concerns that you've mentioned in the past have been addressed. And again, all of those pros and cons that we went through previously were just invaluable for pushing this design to where it is today. There's, what we talked about last time was that there's endless numbers of ways that this design could evolve. But what we really want to make sure is that it's evolving in the way the community needs it to. Attention, young people. This is a very welcome addition. Rooftop area is perfect for numerous events, classes, etc., as well as casual reading and meeting area. Definitely. Let's see anything I like to toss. Okay, well, I think it's great that we're still getting good feedback through this. I'm going to move over to the next exercise here. So even if you're happy about where the project has gone to, what really exciting opportunity do we still need to create for this? What do you see the rooftop being used for? Is that where music should happen? Is it a pollinator garden? Is there, any need for, a space for yoga on the rooftop? Yes, bees. They are our friends. I agree. And that's in terms of the yoga space. What we would like to do is provide an open area that is flexible enough, kind of to what Michael was saying, to where we could program that area to grow and change with where the community wants it to go. So I believe we should consider continuing to use the MAC to fulfill some of the community functions the library district needs. Yeah, that's something we can keep talking about with PPLD and Michael.
Yeah, the partnership with the Manitou Arts Center will most likely remain, but will be different in the future. Of course, if this extension is successful, then we'll move the physical collections from the MAC to the site, and then keep our partnership with the maker possibilities and art possibilities with the Arts Center.
Thanks, Michael. And I'm sorry, everyone, that I keep flipping through these. It's this scroll bar on the side it's very sensitive. Let's see, rooftop, outdoor space for learning, concerts, meeting space, enjoying the park, sitting area, so many options for the outdoor space. So keeping it flexible. I believe we should consider continuing to use the MAC. So, yep. Outside living and learning. Yeah, it seems like a very outdoorsy community. And more open, flat, flexible area for yoga and music. It'd be great for Rachel to make a more permeable wall between the inside and outside at the roof garden. I wonder if you're referring to kind of that guardrail area, or perhaps it's something that gives a little more openness to the lower zone.
I thought maybe they would be talking about the vestibule or the meeting space possibly on those walls. I'm not too sure.
Well, we're going to have all these comments recorded, and the same group that's been really working to make sure that everyone understands that they're an important part of this process is going to be meeting next week to kind of go through all these again and discuss them. Again, try to find those common threads that got us to this point, which was just, again, so helpful, and really tried to make another push at this to make sure that when we meet with the HPC and Parab, that they really are getting something that the community is happy with. Solar panels, since it's facing south. So, you'd think that the site has great solar orientation, and it does just from a pure directional standpoint. But fortunately or unfortunately, you have all these beautiful trees, giant trees across the site, which will really be providing a lot of shade for this building, which is great for keeping your cooling loads down in the summer. Oh, bird feeders. So being able to really have a little moment of connection with nature on this space. I think that'd be really great, especially from an accessible standpoint where it's pretty tough to get out into nature sometimes. Being outdoors with children is so important. The space is invaluable. Need to think about how to keep this cool. Absolutely. I think one of the great benefits, or the passive benefits, of digging this into the earth is just, we have this amazing insulation of soil around the building. And I'm sure some of you have basements, and they're always cooler than the rest of your house. And that's just because the earth is always 55 degrees. And it's just like this naturally passive cooling system that the library can harness. What to do with the steep area in front of the library? That's a good question. I know currently it gets used for seating for the music shows that occur. I think that was kind of the inspiration for the previous option 3 that we can't move forward with. It was just, how do you activate the center of the park? Because it's sloped a little bit too much to be considered accessible. Having the literary arts at the MAC is a positive addition and allows the addition to be even less. Yeah, Michael and I will keep bringing these up for discussion. Shift some functions to the Mac. Yep, again, we'll keep that conversation going. More outside seating. Yeah, I wonder if it's permanent seating, permanent park seating, or is it flexible seating to make sure that this roof can remain adaptable. You live in the hills, of course it's steep. I agree. It makes sense. But even though you all live in the hills, we want to make sure that we're opening up the opportunity to enjoy this space with as many people as we can who live in the community. Community garden, learning, pollinated park. Oh geez, it was going too smoothly before. Sorry about that. So it really seems like for this create portion that there is a desire to, it seems like people appreciate that we've reduced the size of the addition to where we are now, but it's, let's think about how we can maybe keep sharpening our pencil and see what type of opportunities might exist in the community. What's exciting about that is just, again, connecting these different programs, and maybe there's an advantage to that. We saw a big one come up here. Please reduce the size of the building more. yeah, we'll keep that conversation going. Geo exchange system for heating and cooling. Yeah, those are very efficient and interesting systems. We can definitely bring it up with our mechanical engineer and contractor and see what type of pricing hurdles we might have to get over. Typically, it's going to be a little more expensive. Oh, great one. Go ahead, Michael.
Just to mention something about the size, for libraries, it's really important for us to be able to provide resources and possibilities for all ages. Teenagers were mentioned earlier, but all people too. And it goes along with that relationship building, but then also equitability for, in this case, we're looking at providing accessible access to people who have mobility issues and the like, which obviously we've done here. But then in terms of providing appropriate collections for a wide range of our audiences, our community, adults, older adults, young adults, teenagers, older children, younger children, families. We all, at PPLD, we want to target all these different audiences and be able to provide resources for them that are needed in terms of education and recreation. So to do that, there's a certain size that's needed, a certain amount of space that we need to be able to provide materials. PPLD has a floating collection, you probably know this, so we bring in materials from other locations all the time, but we do need to have some on site and available. A number of years ago, probably 10 years ago, the American Library Association highlighted that seating is vitally important and having space to meet in libraries. And so that's another thing that I'm looking at when I'm looking at this design and other designs, that there is that appropriate space. So we're doing what we need to be doing as a library. So I just wanted to mention that in terms of the space.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. And the needed seating that you're mentioning, it's multifunctional on its own, and it's for sitting and enjoying the resource you selected, but it's also kind of creating those moments for community building and informal relationship building. So a comment I wanted to point out was the space for public art and interactive moments for patrons. I think that's a really exciting comment. And there's a lot to dig into it. It could be, something that maybe a special sculptural piece that becomes part of this project, or maybe it's utilizing that community room for a rotating gallery of sorts. So I think we could do a lot of exciting stuff with that. I think a few more comments came through up here. And again, I do wish I could navigate this a little bit more smoothly. So again, sorry for that. Okay, well, I think we kind of went through all of these comments here. And again, I really want to thank everyone for letting us know what you like about it, giving us the tough feedback of what don't you like about it, and then giving us the exciting feedback about what are we going to create still to push this project further. And so we're going to take all this information, just like we did with the previous 3 options, and review it as a team, talk about the things that really help improve and push this project to make sure it's the best it can be for the community. And then where we're going next. So obviously today is kind of wrapping up our kind of presentation of how impactful all of this feedback has been thus far and how important your voices have been in the process. The next step is to meet with Parab, where we're going to be reviewing some of those parking comments, going through how much of the park space is getting taken up and how we're trying to save as much of it as we can. We'll bring up some of those rooftop functions that we discussed tonight. Sculpture gardens and pollinator gardens and maybe some art display space, and just kind of get some feedback. I'm hopeful and excited to kind of hear their thoughts on other opportunities that this design option kind of will uncover to them. And then we're going to be meeting with the Historic Preservation Commission on October 6th. That's really where we're going to be talking about the relationship of the addition to the existing structure and how, we really appreciate the need for celebrating this Carnegie Library and making sure that we're supporting it and enhancing it, but making sure that it's remained this beautiful, prominent structure on the site, especially just given how important its location is to the community. And then the kind of the final part of this concept process is where we're taking all the feedback, we're refining the design, and we're going to be presenting a package to the city council with kind of showing this whole collaborative process we've gone through with everyone. And we're going to present the final design to them for their approval, and we'll be reviewing cost implications and kind of answering any of their more detailed questions about how this project is going to move forward. So with that, just thank you again, everyone, for all of your feedback. We really love designing with this collaborative process and hearing all your voices. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Denise.
Thanks, Eric and Michael. Great job. Thank you for taking the time to do this and for listening to everybody's feedback as we move forward. So thank you. I do want to mention we have an email address that's dedicated to this. It's the Carnegie Library at ManitouSpringsCO.gov. It was at the bottom of that page. Can you go back to that last page there?
On the last
Eric?
one, sorry.
Yep. Thank you. Right there at the bottom, that's the email, and all the emails that come in will be forwarded to Eric and to the group. So we really encourage your feedback. We would like to, for the next 7 days, really focus on getting feedback. That's before we go to the next presentation and upload everything. However, we'll be accepting feedback the whole time. So feel free to send an email at any time, but if you really have feedback and want to get that